My cheating fiancée tried to tell me that her affair was just a test. So, I said goodbye and left. I never imagined that my life would take such a drastic turn. For the longest time, I believed I was living a fairy tale, engaged to the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. Emily and I met in college, and our connection was instant, almost like something out of a romance novel. We spent years building a life together, planning our future, and dreaming of the day we would finally say our vows. Everything seemed perfect until one evening, when my entire world was turned upside down. It was a regular Tuesday night, and I had just returned home from work. Emily was already home, but there was something different in her demeanor that I couldn't quite place. Little did I know, that night would mark the beginning of the end of our relationship, and I would soon learn that the woman I loved had been living a lie. Emily and I had been together for almost 6 years. We met during our junior year of college at a mutual friend's party. She was studying literature and I was deep into my engineering program. Despite our different interests, we clicked instantly. Our relationship grew stronger with each passing year, and soon we were inseparable. We moved in together after graduation and adopted a rescue dog named Max, who quickly became the center of our little world. We had talked about marriage countless times, and when I proposed to her last summer during a trip to the mountains, she said yes without hesitation. We began planning our wedding, picking out venues, and dreaming about our future family. I thought we had an unbreakable bond, a love that could withstand anything. But looking back now, I can see the subtle signs that something was amiss, signs I chose to ignore because I trusted her completely. The first sign was subtle, almost imperceptible. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Emily was unusually distant. We were at our favorite coffee shop, the one where we had our first date. Normally, we'd spend hours talking about everything and nothing, but that day she was glued to her phone. I asked her if everything was okay, and she brushed it off, saying she was just dealing with some work emails. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But then there were other small things. She started coming home later from work, claiming she had taken on more projects. She seemed preoccupied, lost in her thoughts even when we were together. Our conversations, once effortless, now felt strained. I remember one night lying in bed next to her, feeling a growing sense of unease but not wanting to confront it. I convinced myself that every couple goes through rough patches and that we were no different. How could I have known that these were the first cracks in the foundation of our relationship? The discovery came on a night I'll never forget. Emily was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't have paid any attention, but this time, a strange impulse made me glance at the screen. It was a message from someone named Jake, and the preview read, "Can't wait to see you again." My heart sank. With trembling hands, I unlocked her phone. What I found confirmed my worst fears. There were dozens of messages between Emily and Jake, filled with flirtation and plans to meet. It was clear that their relationship was far from platonic. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I read through the texts. The woman I had planned to marry was having an affair. I sat on the edge of the bed, reeling from the betrayal. When Emily came out of the shower, she saw her phone in my hand and the look on my face. She froze, realizing what had happened. I could barely speak. All I could manage was, "How long?" she stammered, trying to find the words. But nothing she could say would change the reality of what I had discovered. The confrontation that followed was intense. My voice shook as I demanded answers. "How long has this been going on, Emily? Who is he?" She looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and guilt. "It's not what you think," she began, but I cut her off. "Not what I think. I read the messages, Emily. Don't lie to me." Emily sat down across from me, her hands wringing nervously. She confessed that she had met Jake through a mutual friend a few months ago. What started as innocent texting had quickly escalated into something more. She admitted to meeting him several times, and each time it had gotten more serious. I felt a sharp pain in my chest as she spoke, each word a dagger twisting deeper. "Why, Emily? Why did you do this to us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know," she said finally. I was confused. and things just got out of hand. But it didn't mean anything, I swear. Her words felt hollow, and I struggled to understand how she could be so cavalier about something that was tearing me apart. Emily's explanation was as bewildering as it was infuriating. She claimed the affair was a test to see if she truly loved me, to make sure our relationship was as strong as we thought. I needed to know if we were really meant to be together, she said, her voice trembling. I thought if I could resist the temptation, it would prove how much I love you. I stared at her in disbelief. A test? You cheated on me as a test. I could barely contain my anger. Do you have any idea how insane that sounds, Emily? You don't test love by betraying someone. You test it by being faithful, by being honest. How could you do this to me? She started to cry, pleading with me to understand, to forgive her. But her tears only fueled my anger. I felt like I was talking to a stranger, not the woman I had planned to spend my life with. Her justification for the affair was absurd, and any remaining hope I had for salvaging our relationship was rapidly disintegrating. As Emily continued to cry and plead for my forgiveness, a cold clarity washed over me. This wasn't just a mistake or a lapse in judgment. This was a fundamental betrayal of trust. I realized that no matter how much I loved her, no matter how many years we had spent together, I could never look at her the same way again. The person I thought I knew, the future I envisioned, had all been shattered. In that moment, I knew our relationship was beyond repair. The weight of her betrayal was too heavy to bear, and I couldn't imagine spending my life with someone who could so easily deceive me. The realization was painful, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. I had been living in a state of confusion and hurt, but now I knew what I had to do. I took a deep breath and stood up. Emily, I can't do this, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I can't be with someone who would betray me like this, no matter the reason. This test of yours, it's cost us everything. Her sobs grew louder, but I felt a sense of finality in my decision. It was time to walk away. Walking away from Emily was the hardest decision I've ever made. Despite the anger and betrayal, there was still a part of me that loved her deeply. But I knew that staying would only prolong the pain and make it harder to heal. I had to choose my own well-being over the remnants of our relationship. I spent the next few days in a daze, packing my things and making arrangements to move out. Emily tried to talk to me several times, but I kept my distance. Each conversation only reopened the wound, and I needed space to process everything that had happened. I found a small apartment on the other side of town and moved in as quickly as possible. As I settled into my new place, the reality of my decision started to sink in. The life I had known was over, and a new, uncertain chapter was beginning. It was terrifying but also strangely liberating. For the first time in a long time, I was focusing on myself and what I needed to heal and move forward. The final goodbye was agonizing. I returned to our shared apartment one last time to gather the remainder of my belongings. Emily was there, her eyes red and swollen from days of crying. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. We stood in the living room, the silence between us deafening. I never wanted it to end like this, she said, her voice breaking. I looked at her, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. Neither did I replied softly. But you made choices, Emily. Choices that destroyed everything we had. As I walked to the door, she grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face. Please don't leave like this. Can't we try to fix this? Her desperation was palpable, but my resolve was firm. There's nothing left to fix, I said, pulling away gently. Goodbye, Emily. With that, I walked out, closing the door on that chapter of my life. Leaving Emily and our shared life behind was like tearing a part of myself away. The first few weeks in my new apartment were filled with a numbing routine. I went to work, came home, and tried to fill the silence with anything that could distract me. The nights were the hardest. Lying in bed alone, the weight of what had happened pressed down on me. I deleted our photos from my phone, boxed up the mementos of our time together, and avoided places that reminded me of her. It felt like I was erasing a part of my past, but it was necessary. The pain was still raw, and every reminder was a knife to the heart. I knew healing would take time, but I was determined to move forward, one step at a time. In the depths of my despair, my friends and family became my lifeline. They rallied around me, offering support and comfort when I needed it most. My best friend, Alex, would come over almost every evening, bringing dinner and a listening ear. We'd sit on my small balcony, talking for hours about anything and everything except Emily. My parents were a constant source of strength, too. They didn't ask too many questions, but made sure I knew they were there for me. My mom would call every morning just to check in, and my dad helped me with the practical aspects of starting over, like setting up my new place and handling the logistics of the move. Their unconditional support reminded me that I wasn't alone, even when it felt like my world was falling apart. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to find my footing again. I reconnected with old friends, started going to the gym more regularly, and even picked up a new hobby, photography. These small steps, combined with the unwavering support of those around me, helped me start to heal. I began to see glimpses of a future that wasn't defined by my past with Emily. The experience, though painful, led to significant personal growth. I learned a lot about myself, my resilience, my capacity for forgiveness, and my ability to move forward even when it felt impossible. I realized that I had been so focused on our relationship that I had neglected my own needs and passions. I took this opportunity to rediscover who I was. I threw myself into my photography, capturing the beauty of the world around me and finding solace in the creative process. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter, which brought me immense joy and a sense of purpose. Through these activities, I began to rebuild my sense of self and find happiness in ways I never expected. I also sought therapy, which helped me process the betrayal and work through my emotions in a healthy way. It was in these sessions that I learned to let go of the anger and pain, replacing them with acceptance and a desire to move forward. I came to understand that while I couldn't control Emily's actions, I could control how I responded and how I chose to live my life moving forward.